Hello, I'm sorry to not be able to participate to this event in person, but I'm very glad to be part of this workshop. And I will speak about competitions in BCI and all the way we have done toward full reproducibility in this BCI framework. So to start with, I'll briefly introduce what are the brain-computer interfaces, very briefly. So the most central idea is to have non-muscular communication. With this, it's a real challenging task because we need to extract from multivariate time series that could come from single unit recording, ECOG, EEG, MEG, some signal of interest that we could then use to control devices and give feedback to the user. It's a very difficult task with lots of noise, lots of artifacts. One major issue is that there is a human in the loop, so it's very hard to be able to provide the correct feedback at the correct time. And generally speaking, when you are looking on EEG, so electroencephalography, there is usually like an enormous amount of raw data that are available. But the quality of this data is usually very poor, and it's very difficult to have good quality recording. So while the application are thrilling and that the community is very supportive, it's very difficult to do correct brain-computer interfaces and to help patients and people with disabilities. So to give you a little bit of an idea of what is an EEG, so I think you already seen some. Maybe you recognize the MNE interface to analyze and to process EEG. So on this particular recording, we see some bad electrode here, some different level of recording, some muscular artifact, and also some electrode that may be slightly disconnected. So it's a really hard task to perform correctly and to uh, make some great decoding algorithm for a brain signal within this framework. To give you a very brief history of all the BCI techniques, I could start with something that is really a specific personal point of view, but there was a filter era from circa 1970 to 2000, and where people were mostly applying filters on the frequency domain and tuning carefully their spatial filter. So it required very high expertise and very good knowledge of all the signal processing techniques. Then around the year 2000 and until 2015, say, lots of approaches were focused on learning the supervised spatial filters. And in that case, the idea is to make use of information, especially the information on covariances in EEG, to be able to extract some spatial filter that are specific to a user, but that are very good at decoding this specific user. Whereas in the previous era, the filter that were designed were only seldomly applied to specific user. They were more like programmed for a specific hardware. So this kind of adaptation to the specificity of the user require very good data quality. And if data is badly labeled, it could be very, very difficult. And then since 2015, but it's the early beginning until now, the deep learning era come into play where people try to use convolutional network that are using the vast availability of data to estimate very specific filter and very specific kind of transformation. So to correctly decode the the brain information. So there has been variation on based on covariance matrices information, on transformer, on recurrent networks. So all the kind of deep learning have been already investigated. But I just want to say a very few information about this covariance matrices and the Riemannian model behind. So the idea is that in many cases for EEG, it's very interesting to compute the covariance, so the spatial covariance between the different electrodes. If you do that, you obtain what is called spatial covariance matrices that belong to a specific regime of matrices, a specific manifold, that is the symmetric and positive definite matrices. It's very interesting because it's possible to come up with lots of very good algorithms that make use of the Riemannian geometry, so geometry of information to correctly define classifiers and way to represent the information and the brain signals. So with many colleagues, we push PyRiemann, so a toolbox in Python for making available for everybody all the Riemannian approaches that is scikit-learn compatible and that could be applied on very different time series. So here I will focus on EEG for this presentation, but Riemannian approaches are also used in MEG, EMG, fMRI, and so on, and also on different types of data. And on this website for PyRiemann, you have all the batteries and all what you need to power up your application with preprocessing, transfer learning, and example and documentation. So as you've seen, I'm quite fond of this kind of open source approaches where we could apply and show the result of very different type of algorithm for um, for the signal of interest here, covariance matrices for as a proxy for brain signal, because open source matters a lot in neuroscience and neurophysiological analysis. For example, there is the FreeSurfer application that is very popular for extracting features in MRI, and due to very good user scrutiny, it was possible to see that some variation in the software could lead to very different conclusion. And a paper were obtaining very different conclusion based on the analysis that was only explicable through software variation. It was a little bit the same kind of problem that occurred for several implementation of ICA and some widely used implementation of independent component analysis give very different results on different machines. So it was also very problematic issue that could only be fixed because several users were and scientists were evaluating the different problems and see how they could solve it. So it requires lots of people to write software, but even more to verify and validate software. And neuroscience is a very complex, very pluridisciplinary science, and that rely on very advanced pre-processing. So we need collective effort to build open science. So that's very important. And here for brain-computer interface, this reproducibility through open source has still a long way to go because lots of the time in the literature the code is not available, the data format in which you could find the code, when there is some, is often in different languages using obsolete toolboxes or very weird formats. And when the data is available, sometimes it's already preprocessed and include errors in estimation of the data that is released. So it's very difficult to navigate in this literature, and it's a huge waste of time for everyone, and including especially all the students that redo experiment and could discover many flaws in existing paper. So we need a way to know the different proposition of algorithm, of workflow, how they could relate to each other and how they could be ranked. And we need comprehensive benchmark and that rely on available data sets so it's possible to have fair evaluation. So this is very important to push for this objective. And what is very bad for us is that previously, it was not necessarily the case, especially in BCI. So since the year 2000, there was competition that were really structuring and giving good visibility of the BCI problem. So the first competition was the BCI competition in 2002, where there were 3 datasets, 10 submission, 10 team participating. And this kind of competition gained momentum. So in 2003, there was the BCI competition 2, also on motor imagery paradigm. And this time there were more datasets, 6, and more submission, 55. So 57, it was quite good. And the datasets were more difficult to process. In 2004, the BCI competition 3, one of the most famous BCI competition, proposes a P300 paradigm and motor imagery as well on 8 different datasets and top nearly 100 submissions, so from different teams. In 2008, there was a BCI competition 4 that were combining very different paradigm for 5 datasets with a total of 40 submission. And what is very important, seeing the legacy of this competition, is that they provided at a time where it was very difficult to know what kind of machine learning algorithm for estimating spatial filter were the most appropriate. It yield very good and very useful evaluation. So it was possible to assess those different pipeline with a very accurate depiction of the reality. And the fact that this approach worked on the competition made them also very efficient on real usage of brain-computer interfaces. So it was a double win, and it also contributed a lot to make the brain-computer interface community very visible. And the fact that most of the dataset for the competition were open or provided as open data ensured a strong legacy. So for quite some time, it was very clear what were the very good approaches and how does these different approaches work. But unfortunately, after those competition, there was no real big competition that federated lots of teams and lots of competitor. So it was more or less moved toward the cybathlon, where cybathletes are competing against each other using BCI in real time. So this is the real matter, but it requires tremendous energy to work with a pilot and to push a team toward this cybathlon. So as it's very difficult, um, it was lots of paper and literature were relying on the open data from the previous competition. And as it was very visible at the time, there was like an exponential increase in BCI paper. And it was very, very hard to find those approaches that were really increasing the field. So a few BCI competition were quite noticeable. So in 2015, it's the beginning of the Riemannian geometry I told you about. And at the time, it was very difficult to know if it was something that was really useful or only just um, only just good on paper. But using different competition, and this is only the first one that was winning by Riemannian geometry approaches. In 2015, in this very NER community, there was very hard competition on P300 using error potential to help a participant to use a P300 speller. And in this competition, it was the first win of the Riemannian geometry. There was no big BCI competition afterwards, only in 2020 and after. One that was also very noticeable was the NER 2021 on passive BCI. So what was very difficult, it was to detect workload for different participants and cognitive load. And the competition was very, very difficult, and the result for some of the different classes that were to predict were only just above chance level. Whereas in the literature, it was said that it was very simple and already quite solved as a problem. So in 2023, I organized with some colleague the Beetle competition in NERIPS. So there was two tasks, one on sleep analysis and the second one on transfer learning in BCI, based on dataset recording for cybathlete. And it was also quite a cornerstone because it was the first time that a deep learning approach took the lead of the competition. So it was quite impressive at the time. And until then, there was no big competition afterwards. So I will now briefly speak about how to organize competition, and I will describe the Codabench platform that we used for our competition. So Codabench is an open platform that is open source and that allows to set up data science challenges. And what is very interesting is that for challenges that are associated with major conferences like NeurIPS, NER, IEEE conferences, and so on, it's the first platform for the competition. So in front of Kaggle, and that is now owned by Google, and in front of Tianqi, that is owned by Alibaba. And this uh, platform that is called Codabench now, but was called CodaLab in the past, totalized so a huge number of competition, as you could see on the chart below. So each year there are many competition. So we will certainly I think we reached this year the 500 competition in just the 2025. So also, it's very interesting to see that the number of paper describing the results of competition are more and more common in the literature. So research on Google Scholar showed that from 2021 with 380 paper to 2024 with 563 paper. There are like an increase of number of paper published each year in the domain, in very different domain. So if you want to organize a competition, how could that work on Codabench? So to give you an organizer perspective on a competition, um, it all starts on the competition site. So say, for example, this URL. So you could you could create your own competition. It's free and open. And the Codabench platform come with a database of user profile, of different competition, of datasets, of submission, and some free compute workers. So if you need to do computing job, crunching number, it's already possible. If you need, you could even plug your own compute worker if you need more power to process the submission of the user. Everything is is containerized using Docker or Podman. And for the organizer, your responsibility is to provide the data, the scoring program, a starting kit, and to describe in HTML pages how will the competition will be handled, the different phase, the different date, and if needed, some ingestion program and scoring. So from user perspective, then a user could find some nice competition on the Codabench platform. When he find nice competition, he could submit. So there are two possibilities to submit depending on the competition. It's possible that the user download the data, process it on his own hardware, and then send the result. The result will be displayed on a leaderboard, so it's quite fun. It's interesting to see how it progress and the different metrics. And it's also possible to send directly your code. So you don't download, you don't have access to the test data. You just send your code, and your code is evaluated on the compute worker on the different data set that only the organizer know. In that case, also everything is containerized, so all the programs are evaluated first by ingesting the program and then by scoring the result against some reference data. So that's how competition work. And if we need to have a quick look at the structure of competition in the now taking a step back. Um, in terms of Codabench platform, there is this platform that is available for anybody to make instance that could help to create a competition on different level. Those level could be academic level. It could be for scientific challenges as the one I will present, but it's also possible to integrate these data challenges inside the classes. So you could train your students using competition to make them discover the different way of doing machine learning using competition. And also it's very interesting and we are organizing quite regularly, class to create your own benchmark and your own challenge. So in that case, it's very interesting because you are thinking about what are the important scores, what are the important parts, what kind of data do you need to provide, and how should you structure your challenge. And it's a real experience to have this kind of classes because it really helps to have a good overview of what do you need when you are applying machine learning. So it's especially useful for students. Then on the organizer, competition organizer part, so benchmark organizer, what you need is to provide a bundle. So this bundle will be ingested by Codabench that will treat your competition and that will give you all the resources you need for ingestion and scoring and to create, if you need to interrogate, either to create new benchmark or to interact on them using the dedicated API. For participants, they could submit code or they could submit data. And that way, it's possible to easily verify that your code is reproducible. And it's also possible to ask the user to provide some code that could be embedded in a Docker. So in that way, you could have fully reproducible code. So let's now come to the competition we have organized. So using this Codabench platform, we had the pleasure of organizing this NeurIPS 2025 EEG Foundation Challenge. So we took back what was the legacy of all those previous competition to push the challenges forward and to make things more in the deep learning area and addressing even more complex problems. So what we wanted to do is to reach what should be the very heart of a foundation model, that is the ability to do cross-task and cross-subject EEG decoding. So we push for cross-task transfer learning, so being able to transfer the knowledge from very different EEG cognitive tasks recorded with EEG and being able to transfer them on a specific active task. And also, one very big challenge is to be able to extract robust representation that are subject invariant and that allows to generalize very well with different subjects. And especially we are interested in predicting clinical factors that are very important for all the One Health approach and that are very used in the different medical professions. So all of this could only be possible because we have access to a very large and super high quality dataset. That is the HBN EEG dataset. So that records over 3,000 participants. So all their EEG is recording while they perform very different tasks, some active, some passive. And for the specific goal of this competition, we could rely on an unreleased part of the data, so all the results we will obtain on this competition will be unbiased. So the idea was to provide a very large scale and diverse dataset because if you want to train very big model, you will need all this diversity and you will need lots of data. So while it's possible to use different type of data and for the competition, it's even encouraged to use different source of data outside the HBNEG dataset. But this will having this very strong dataset allows to have a very robust basis for building those models. Also, what we want is to be able to benchmark and to know what approach are robust, are transferable, and how we could benchmark them and have a good evaluation. And what we hope is that during the competition, there was team, our competitor gathering in teams, and they were able to foster new collaboration. So especially between machine learning or theoricists and neuroscientists. So it's possible to create new bridges. So to give you a little bit more of information about this competition, we decided to make two different tasks. The first one was a task where using information from different subjects, what we want is on unreleased test data that the competitor be able to predict some response time. So this kind of response time is very close to what is asked for BCI participant and brain-computer interface framework. So it's very close to BCI. This task was expected to be not so difficult, so it was ranked less in terms of weight for the challenge. And also so that was the first task, so regression on the prediction of the time of the of some action. And the second task, what was more challenging but at the same time really proposing a new step, is to decode some psychopathology factors. So the idea is that for a user, you have some EEG recording and you need to predict those factors, knowing that you could access all the release for those tasks. So what we have done to ensure a correct level of trust with all the participants was to first start with a first phase of evaluation where we use the release number 5 as a target release. So all the assessment and all the method were evaluated on this method that was already available. And it was very fundamental for our challenge because it ensured that participants could use their own algorithm, try them at home or on their cluster, and see the result on release 5. They could give us their code because we were doing a code-based competition. So user submit their code, and we run the code on the release 5, and we provide the results. So it was very important so the user could see that when we were crunching their model on the data, that we obtained the same result as they do. This first phase allowed to be sure that all the user and the organizer were aligned. And then on the last phase, we move on unseen release, so unreleased data, that is the release 12, that is not openly available now. And we evaluated all the contestants on this specific dataset using the two tasks, the prediction task for little similar to the BCI and the psychopathology task. So a new task that is quite important. Okay, so I could already say that this competition was a huge success in terms of attendance, and we hope that it will also bring a huge success in terms of progress. So there was there was around 120,000 visits worldwide. So you could see all the person visiting the website, and in the end, we had around 1,200 teams, very high number of teams. It's the first time that we obtained such big competition on the Codabench platform, and even for NERIPS, it was one of the biggest competition in NERIPS. This year it is just behind the Google Golf Code competition. That is organized by a colleague. So we have like very huge and large attendance. So people submitted more than 8,000 jobs that we thoroughly evaluated, and we have we have evaluated on this all this job on our platform, and so I think I will now leave the floor to my colleague to give you more information about the end of this competition. So thank you very much, and thank you.